Hey guys, welcome back to the 9th episode of my Fixing American Democracy series. We are willing to fight to reimagine and reform our democratic elections that will make it fair for all political parties and for all candidates for generations to come, that will truly create a government that's truly by, of, and for the people. And in this 9th episode of my Fixing American Democracy series, and yes, it has been a while actually, but because I decided to take a little bit of a break from this series, in this 9th episode, this is actually going to be a second part to my third episode of Fixing American Democracy, where I talked about what is the best primary election, where I went into the different types of primary elections and stating where my overall opinion, sharing my overall opinion of what is the best primary election that the U.S. should use. And I know from that third episode, you guys already knew. Even from the video and in the comment section, where I overall stand when it comes to primary elections. And honestly, I'm actually completely still for strict closed party primary elections, where political parties will run their own primary election, will run their own conventions to actually nominate a candidate that they can nominate a candidate that will represent their party in the general election, and they can vote on policies that they will add to their party's platform that they will sell to the voters in the general election. Where in the general, it'll be Republican, it's a Democrat, a Green, a Libertarian, and so on, and maybe an Independent, and so on, to actually all face off with each other with different platforms and different policies that they will all face off, and they will be and thanks to ranked choice voting, those candidates will be. They will be all about focusing on broadening their coalition, reaching out to new voters, reaching out to their opponents' voters from different parties that have different platforms and policies that will help bring everyone together, and create far more civility and a lot more nonpartisanship in our politics. And overall, and then before I begin, I wasn't always 100% a big advocate for closed party primaries, simply because when they're back during the year of 2017, and this was after after that big old government shutdown during I think it was during the year of in between it was during the spring of 2018. This is like during 2016, 2017, I was a big all-time Trump supporter. Then when 2018 hit, I actually lost entirely, completely faith. I lost. That's when my distrust with the two-party system and the Republicans and the Republican Party that I used to be a member of, like I lost a lot of faith in them, because I saw the Republicans and Democrats as partisan, very, very partisan. They don't really care about working with each other. They only care about doing things for their own self-interest politically, and that's something what our founding fathers feared. They feared, because from what they saw as from the imperfection of human nature, is that people that they fear that people will ultimately corrupt our politicians, our elected officials, even the people that were representing, and the people who were voting these politicians in. Everyone is subject to this problem with human nature, and that is exercising power in their own favor and not serving the enthusiasm of everyday Americans. And during that time, I used to be a proud advocate for open primary elections. I used to be a proud advocate for jungle primary, and even an advocate for top two primaries, simply because I thought it would be a good thing for democracy if we improve the voter access and increase voter participation by advocating for open primary election. We will include every voter, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, not just Independents, not just Democrats, Republicans controlling their own primary elections, but every voter, all voters, having an open primary election where all the candidates, regardless of party, are running in the same primary election, and the top two vote getters will advance to the general election regardless of party. And I used to be a proud advocate for this, because I thought it would bring a sense of nonpartisanship. It would bring a sense of getting politicians to be more representative of the people at large. And I used to be supportive of this, and during this time. But I actually throughout my overall experiences that I had with the system and with open primaries, even since I'm from California, where we do have a top 2 primary system, we do have an open primary system for Senate, governor, lieutenant governor, state legislature, house elections, and so on with these local government races. My overall experience is I actually changed my overall stance on this primary election simply because I don't think it actually creates more nonpartisan. I don't think it leads to more moderate candidate. I think it completely makes one election safe for one political party. It shuts out other parties' candidates that will shut out other parties' candidates. And those voters are not going to have a candidate that they can get behind. And this happened in so many ways. But before I go into the negatives of open primary elections and why I'm overall against open primary elections, we have to understand why this is being talked about. And people like Unite America and these people from Open Maine primaries, they're advocating. The reason why they're advocating for it because they think it would create more bipartisanship and much more nonpartisan. And while I used to be in the same position, and they think it would actually increase voter participation. And they're somewhat right because overall, from registered independents, based on all the data, more and more Americans are becoming more unaffiliated with either major party, the Democrats and the Republicans. Registered independents outnumber even Republicans. They even outnumber Republicans. More independents, more people in California are registered independents than they are registered Republicans. And that number of registered independents keep on growing to the point which I believe will actually surpass the Democrats' margin in California. And now those parties are going to have to work harder for those type of voters. And Unite America believes that if we just completely get rid of party primaries, or in other words, what they call it as partisan primaries, that's open primaries, we're actually including everyone. We're including everyone into this. We're actually including everyone, where independent voters can actually somewhat have a say in the primary process of who gets to actually make it into the general election. They have a lot more of a say in the primary process. And even though they might be right in that regard, I completely, full-heartedly still disagree with this proposal. Even though, listen, I'm an independent I'm an independent voter. I'm a no-party preference voter from California, from the state of California, from California's 49th district. I live in the Encinitas area of California. This is not open primary elections, and while it might sound good on paper because everyone can vote in a primary, it just leads to far less competitive elections. And through throughout my overall experiences with the system, it leads to so many less competitive elections. And that's one of the faults with the top 2 primary system and that California uses. That even the state of Washington uses. It leads to far less competitive elections. And also, and now let's actually talk about some of the differences let's talk about some of the negatives with open primaries. In an open primary, first we have to understand, but like all my other videos, where I talked about reforming the electoral college and even making healthcare far more affordable, we have to understand we have to understand the overall issue, and we have to understand each of these policies, so we have a general idea of what it actually is, and we can form our own conclusions of what is ultimately the best policies. So in an open primary, all voters can cast their votes in the nomination process, irrespective of their affiliation to any political party. This has enabled voters with their affiliation to other political parties to cast their votes too. Politics is the last place to follow niceties and play fair by staying within the rules of the game. This gives rise to the problem of rating in an open primary. Rating, when the members of the competing party plays a role in selecting the nominee for each other, they are bound to make sure to engineer circumstances that are best suited for them. They are provided with an opportunity to choose the weakest link from their opposition as their competition. This effort by a political party is known as rating. And this is one of the biggest reasons why I'm completely against open primaries, why I am more for closed party primaries, simply because this encourages one party, like for instance, like the Democrats, for instance, or the Democrats can actually, in one state, they can actually with an open primary, so they can easily go to another political party's primary, and they can hijack that party's primary and nominate an incredibly weak candidate. And this is one of the biggest problems with open primaries, because now with one party actually hijacking another party's primary, and where they nominate an incredibly weak candidate, then their nominee has a much more safer chance of being elected or reelected, and that's going to lead to a far less unhealthy democracy. And it's why I am completely against open primary elections. While it might sound good on paper, and I understand what Unite America is saying, and even these people who are advocating for open primary elections, it's only going to lead to far less competitive elections. And I understand, I get it. As a fellow independent voter myself, I get it. I understand you, fellow independents. I understand that. I understand you want somewhat of a say. Well, if you want to participate in a primary election, find a political party that best affiliates with you. And I know if you guys don't feel like you have a voice in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, there's other political parties out there. There's the Libertarian Party, there's the Green Party, there's the Constitution Party, the Reform Party, the Alaska Independence Political Party. There's the Liberty Union Party. There's even a Progressive Party. There's so many other minor parties out there that you can join. And then guess what? They run their own primary election also. Find a party that you can belong to. It doesn't have to be the two major parties' candidates. It doesn't have to be being affiliated to the two major parties. Find a political party that best affiliates with you. Even if it's a minor party, good. You found an area where you could actually belong to. You could actually belong to a party. Find a party that you best belong, that makes you a sense of, that gives you a sense of belonging somewhere. And that's a good thing, in my opinion. That's a good thing. That's democracy. You are participating in a democracy, because now, since you found a party that you can actually that you can participate in to nominate candidates, that you can have somewhat of a say who will be your nominee to represent your party in the general election, and you can vote on. You can have somewhat of a say on what the party's platform is going to be. That's going to be a good thing, because that's democracy. And then in the general election, when they face off with other parties' primary, you're gonna nominate other parties' nominees. That's gonna create far more of a healthier democracy. So to the other independent voters that rather be unaffiliated with neither major party, because I know some people will be like myself, who will not really be affiliated to any political party. Now after a party's primary election is over, all the party has to do is actually since they won the support of their party, they won the support of their party members. Now they have to reach out to more voters. They have to broaden their base to newer voters. To more voters. They have to reach out to their opponents' voters. They have to reach out to other independent voters and other voters that register with different parties. And that's ultimately a good thing. That's democracy right there. With having one Democrat, one Libertarian, one Republican, one Green, and so on, all facing off with each other, with different candidates that believe in different things, that have a different stance when it comes to governing, and when it comes to policies on certain issues like healthcare and homelessness, and having completely different platforms that they're selling to the voter. That's a good thing, because now voters are going to have a wide range of choices. They're going to have a wide range of policies from different candidates that have an entirely different vision. And that's honestly a good thing. That's democracy right there. That is a healthy democracy. And open primaries is a complete opposite of that, because it's going to lead to far less competitive elections. Like for instance, I know one instance where an open primary election can fail. Back in the 2017 Alabama Senate special election, where the governor called for a Senate special election to actually fill Jeff Sessions' Senate seat. During the Republican primary, during the Senate runoff for the Republican primary runoff, who will be the Republican nominee to actually take on former Democratic Senator Doug Jones in the general election. There was on Fox News. I remember watching Fox News. They actually support. There was one voter who was a Democrat, who was actually from Virginia, and she went to Alabama to actually participate in the Republican Party's primary to actually vote for Roy Moore, because she believed that it would be because she believed that Roy Moore would be an incredibly weak candidate. And well and behold, he was a weak candidate after those scandals came up, and why the Democrats won the Alabama Senate seat back in 2017, why Doug Jones won. It's because Roy Moore was an incredibly weak candidate. This, my friends, is a proud example of rating. When one member of a competing party plays a role and actually hijacks another party's primary to nominate an incredibly weak candidate. This is not democracy. This is only making one election safe for your party, for your proud candidate that you want to win the general election. This is not democracy. This is leading to a far less healthy democracy, much more less competitive, much more where you're limiting competition. You're limiting very strong candidates, because honestly, in my opinion, parties, let the honesty, in my opinion, let it be completely closed to party members, where Democrats cannot vote in Republican primaries, Republicans cannot vote in Democratic primaries. Let the parties run that primary themselves to actually nominate so they can nominate both two strong candidates with two different visions, completely different policy and platform that they stand on numerous issues. Then that's going to create a far more healthier democracy that all Americans want to see, and that will ultimately create a government that's truly by, of, and for the people. And as well, another proud example of this is back in the 2018 Senate election, when back during the June primary. And this is one of my overall opinion why I completely changed my overall stance on open primaries and top two primaries, simply because. Simply because we got two Democrats on the ballot. This completely shut out all the other Republican voters. This completely shut out. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see how much of the vote did Trump got. So Trump got 34.3% of the vote in 2020 in California. So you're pretty much shutting out 30% of Republican voters in the state of California. Even though I understand California might be a very, very, even though I understand it's a very, very deep blue state, but still, now you're shutting out Republican voters in the state. Now they don't have a candidate that they can get behind. They don't. Now they're going to have to. They might want to stay home to vote. They might just want to stay home and not vote. That's not a good thing, because we want everyone to participate in our elections. We want everyone to participate in our democratic elections, not just Democratic voters, because not just Democratic voters in this Senate election. That's gonna affect down ballot races when one party is completely shut out in an election. When one party shuts out another party from the general election, that will lead to far less competitive election, and will lead to a far less healthier democracy. And it's why I am completely against open primaries. As well, this even happened in the California gubernatorial race back in 2018. Governor Gavin Newsom, if I remember correct, one thing I remember is, Gavin Newsom, the reason why he wanted to face John Cox, because he believed that just facing a conservative Republican candidate would be an easy win for him, an easy win. This is a bad thing, because the reason why he didn't want to face Antonio Vigorosa, because Antonio Vigorosa, the reason why he didn't want to face off with another Democrat, because now he would have to, because that other Democrat, like Antonio Vigorosa, for instance, that he would give Newsom a real run for his money that would make it far more competitive, where he has to really campaign harder. He has to fight harder for people's votes, and he didn't want to do that. He just wanted an easy shot at winning and being elected governor of California. This is not democracy. When one candidate is analyzing all the candidates and picking who's the most weakest candidate that will give me an easy win. That's not democracy. That is finding a way to gain our political system for your own self-interest, for your own power, for your own concern. That is not democracy. That is not giving the American people a candidate. That's not reflecting what the overall American public wants from you. That's not what the American people want. Every voter, if it's Republicans, if it's Democrats, if it's Green Party, if it's Libertarians, should all have a candidate that they can get behind in the general election. There should, and I don't like the whole idea of Democrats, like in a primary election, all Democrats, Republicans, Greens, Libertarians, independent candidates, no party preference candidates, and so on, all facing off with each other in the same primary election, and the top two vote getters, regardless of party, if it's two Republicans or two Democrats, facing off in the general election or in a runoff election, like what happened in 2018 Louisiana gubernatorial election, where they got one Republican and one Democrat. That is one of the reasons why I'm completely against open primaries, because it leads to far less competitive elections. It will shut out so many voters. It will shut out so many voters. So many voters. It will make elections far more or less competitive, and candidates. And this is going to incentivize candidates, a very candidate that has extraordinary name recognition. He's going to analyze all the candidates, and you know what he's going to do for his own self-interest? He's going to pick a candidate with thanks to an open primary. He's going to pick a candidate that will give him an easy win. That's incredibly weak. That will give that candidate, that other candidate, an easy win. That's not democracy. When that is simply a way to only gain our political system. That's not good, and when it's why I'm completely against open primary elections. But overall, now my overall stance and my overall opinion of why I think open primary elections are a bad thing for our democracy. Now let's go through this area where how I would improve primary elections, but also how I would want to envision closed party primary / convention, because closed party primary, what would be the best closed party primary / convention that we can have for the U.S. to actually that can actually build a very healthy democracy, where all U.S. voters in the general election have a candidate that they can get behind and platforms that they can get behind. Now let's talk about it. And one of the biggest reasons, another big reason why I am for completely strict closed party primary / convention, where Republicans vote in their primaries, Democrats vote in their primaries, Reform Party members vote in their party primaries, Progressives vote in their own party's primaries, simply because it is a political party's constitutional right or First Amendment right to organize, to unite all of their party members and delegates, bring them all together in this one big event to nominate candidates and vote on a platform that they will sell to the voters in the general election. And so when it's the general election, majority of party members from that party will have a nominee that they can overall get behind, and that's a good thing, because now a party can actually because with that's going to lead to one strong candidate to another strong candidate. You're going to have 8 strong candidates, not weak candidates, where one can has a complete advantage, you're gonna have multiple strong candidates with different values and different ideas on how government should work, different policies, what government should do to improve upon people's lives. That's an overall good thing. That's going to create a far more healthy democracy, and also on top of that, voters can actually get behind a candidate that they can have. All voters will have a real voice. If California, and even the state of Washington, if they just if they want to, if they, even Louisiana, they just completely end their open primaries, and of all states, and even my home state, California, they just end their top 2 primaries and go back to strict closed party primary elections, you would see much more of a healthier democracy. If this had worked, if California in the 2018 election had closed party primary, you would see far more of a competitive election. More Republicans would turn out. Democratic voters, everyone would all turn out because they will have a candidate that they can get behind, that they best support, that best shares their values. Everyone will have a candidate that they can get behind, and that's why I am completely for closed party primary, because it's going to create a far more healthier democracy for all Americans as well. And part of this is one thing that I think that would actually improve closed party primary elections, and this is what the Virginia GOP did during their convention when nominating Glenn Youngkin and the first African American woman to actually and also an African American woman nominated to the Virginia GOP from the GOP convention that is also running to be that's also running on the Republican ticket to be lieutenant governor of Virginia. They actually used the ranked choice voting to actually nominate their process. And then, honestly, in my opinion, I think ranked choice voting with closed party primaries and in a party's convention, incentivizing political parties to use instant runoff voting as preferential voting, where voters, instead of voting for one candidate, can rank all the candidates in order of preference. I think that would honestly, in my opinion, create a far more healthy democracy. That will improve the primary process, because the biggest issue when it came to primary elections, like for instance, back in the 2020 Democratic presidential primary, there was a very, very crowded Democratic field. You had Beto O'Rourke, you had Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, you had Joe Biden, and Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew. You had a very crowded field. If that had ranked choice voting, that would have a complete different. There would be a massive, complete, a different outcome in that election, in that primary election. And I can, well and behold, I think Bernie Sanders would actually do very well in a ranked choice voting election in the Democratic presidential primary, simply because people who support Elizabeth Warren, they can rank Bernie Sanders as their second choice. And so that would actually give progressive Democrats in the Democratic presidential primary to get where they can actually vote for their favorite and also vote for their safety, to actually making sure they have a progressive Democrat that will represent their party in the general election, and that will vote on, and they can vote on more of a progressive platform, like Medicare for all, like free college tuition, which I know a lot of Bernie Sanders and AOC support, a Green New Deal. That's what the Democrats also support. That will honestly, in my opinion, create far more of a healthier democracy, because now you would have one progressive Democrat, you would have a conservative populist Republican, you would have a centrist candidate, you would have a fiscally conservative candidate, you would have a Green Party candidate, you would have maybe another candidate, and they would all come in the general election with different platforms, a different take, a different idea of how government should be, and how and different policies on cracking down on the major issues. This will honestly, in my opinion, create a far more a healthier democracy and a better democracy. Now, because all voters, if it's progressives, Republicans, conservatives, centrists, liberals, radicals, reactionaries, they will all have a candidate that they can get behind, that they can feel very strongly for. They can vote for their favorite, and they can also vote for they can also vote for their safety pick. And with this, with closed party primaries, with ranked choice voting and instant runoff voting in the general election, once a primary process, once the party's primary, once they nominate a candidate to represent them, and they have their platform that they will sell to the voters in the general election, all that nominee has to do now is that he has to keep reaching out to voters, because now, since he has majority support with his party members, now all he has to do is reach out and broaden his base with other voters, with independents, and even voters from and also reach out to voters and also reach out to his opponent's voters. And this will honestly lead to far more. That will lead to far more bipartisanship and bring everyone back to the center once again. So let me hear where you guys stand on this overall issue. Do you completely agree with me? Do you guys completely agree with my ideas? Do you think closed party primaries, South Convention, very strict, where Republicans vote in their primary, Democrats vote in their own primary, Libertarians vote in their own primary, and Greens only vote in their own primary, get the vote in their primary? Do you think that will create, do you guys agree with me that, do you guys completely agree with me that it would actually lead to a far more healthier democracy for all Americans? Because and I think it would. I think it would because every voter will have, in the general election, will have a candidate that they can get behind. They can have a candidate that best shares their values. Or do you guys completely disagree with me? Do you guys think open primary elections and nonpartisan elections, like open primaries where all the candidates that run in the same primary election, all the candidates, regardless of party, run in the same primary election, and the top 2 vote getters, or maybe top 4 vote getters, advance to the general election? Do you guys completely disagree with me? Do you think open primaries are still a good primary system? Share your overall opinion in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share and yet again, I'm going to repeat myself again. Share where you overall stand, because I will respect everyone's opinions and be very civil with everyone, because we can all be agents of change. We can all be agents of change that will reimagine our democratic elections and our democracy for generations to come. So once again, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. And until next time, this is the Young Centrist, and I am out.